Hello YouTube and welcome to the next route learning video. On today's video we're going to be taking train 1 Delta 01, which is the 5:50 AM service from London King's Cross to Leeds, and we'll be taking that as far as Peterborough, calling at Stevenage along the way, which is a distance of 76¼ miles. Our attraction for the journey today is an East Coast Trains Class 91. And just before we continue, I'd just like to give a shout out to JDB158, who was helping me out on previous videos with the pronunciations of Scottish place names, something that I was very much struggling with. The Class 91 was built between 1988 and 1991 at Brell Crew Works, and a total of 31 of these locomotives were produced. The weight of the locomotive is 81.5 tonnes. The maximum speed is 140 miles per hour, though the maximum permitted speed in service currently is 125 miles per hour. The locomotive has a power output of 6,480 horsepower, making it one of the most powerful locomotives in the UK. And just to add that back in the late 80s or early 90s, I'm not sure which it is, this train achieved the speed record for a train in the United Kingdom of 162 miles per hour on the East Coast Main Line. On the rear of the train we have a Mark IV DVT. DVT stands for Driving Van Trailer, and this is an unpowered vehicle with a driver's cab. So at the front end of the train we have the Class 91 locomotive, and on the rear we have this DVT. The trains operate in push-pull formation from London, which means that the locomotive is pulling the train from London to Leeds, Newcastle, Edinburgh, Glasgow, or wherever the train is going. And then on the way back into London, the driver drives from this unpowered DVT, with the locomotive pushing the train back into London. Once in the cab of the locomotive, there's not a lot that we need to do. As you've probably already seen, I have already put the headlights on. So what I need to do now is put the train into forward and then reset the AWS self-test sequence. However, afterwards I am going to move the reversing handle back to the neutral position to turn the fan off temporarily, as it is quite noisy. So the train is now in forward, and you've heard that the fans have started. I've now moved the reversing handle back to the neutral position, and so you'll hear the fans turn off in a moment. And now over to the left here, the thing that I need to do is turn on the instrument lights so we can see them. We are departing London King's Cross at 5:50 AM on an autumn morning. So initially as we leave London it's going to be fully dark, and you're going to find that we have a lot of problems seeing things ahead of us, but it really does add to the appearance of speed. Also there's some really cool lighting effects that you won't see on this route in the daytime when you're leaving London. And then as we get out of London towards Stevenage and Peterborough, you'll notice it slowly starts to get lighter, and we will be able to see more and more of the trackside scenery. Once we're cleared to depart London King's Cross, the first thing that I just did was move the reversing handle into the forward position. And as you heard, this turned the fans on. And now I'm applying a little bit of power, probably about half power now, to bring our speed up towards 15 miles per hour. The starting speed limit here at London King's Cross is 15 miles per hour. And we've got around 27.5 miles to go to the next stop, which is Stevenage. As we reach 15 miles per hour, I'm going to idle the power and allow the train to coast. I will then apply a small amount of power once we're a little bit further into this tunnel, which is Gasworks Tunnel, immediately leaving King's Cross, as we will start going up in this tunnel on a gradient of 1 in 107. This train does have a speed set which is very inaccurate and very difficult to set. You generally need to set it 5 to 10 miles per hour above the speed you want to go for it to maintain that speed. And using the keys Y and C, which are the buttons that operate it, you'll notice the little bug on the outside of the speedometer, which represents the speed set, jumps all over the place. It's really difficult to get it to the speed that you want to go, so we're not going to be using that for a while yet. probably not until we reach the 125 mile per hour sections further on this route. We have just passed a 45 mile per hour speed board, so the speed limit is now going up to 45, and we can accelerate just before the end of this tunnel. I have now applied some power to try and ensure we don't lose too much speed, as we are now on the uphill gradient. As you can see, we did get down to closer to 10 miles per hour, and we are slowly increasing in speed once again. At this point here, we can now go into full power to start accelerating up towards the 45 mile per hour speed limit. The next speed change will be an increase to 65 miles per hour at the next tunnel, which is just coming up. You can just about make out the mouths of the tunnel there in the distance. The structure that we're about to pass under, which is illuminated pink, is the high-speed 1 route from London St Pancras International, taking southeastern high-speed domestic services into Kent, and also Eurostar services down into Paris and France, and also into Belgium and Brussels. We are now entering Copenhagen Tunnel, and the speed limit has gone up to 65 miles per hour. We can just stay in full power here, as we won't get to the previous 45 speed limit before the rear of the train has passed the 65 board. We have just passed an 80 mile per hour speed board, and once again we can just stay in full power, as by the time we've reached the previous 65 limit, the rear of the train will have cleared the 80 mile per hour speed board. On our right just here is Emirates Stadium, which is the home of Arsenal Football Club. Once we reach 80 miles per hour, I'm then going to temporarily idle the power and just coast just for a moment. The speed limit will then shortly be going up to 90 miles per hour, and we can accelerate around halfway through the platform of the next station that we pass through. I have now idled the power at 80 miles per hour. We've just passed the 90 mile per hour speed board, and we can now see Finsbury Park station just coming up. And now we're about halfway through the platform. I'm going to go into full power to accelerate up towards 90. Now at 90 miles per hour, I've once again idled the power temporarily. The speed limit will shortly be going up to 95 miles per hour. And so I'm just looking for the 95 board now. We're now passing Harringay station. We have just passed the 95 mile per hour speed board, and we can accelerate towards that as we pass the 2 repeater lights we just passed now on the left. I have applied a low amount of power just to bring our speed up towards 95. On the right now we're passing Hornsey EMU depot, which is the home of most of the Great Northern units which are stored in London. We're now passing through Hornsey station. I've just idled the power again temporarily as we were gaining just a little bit too much speed, and I'll very shortly just go back up to a low power setting to try and ensure that we don't lose too much speed. now passing through Alexandra Palace station, and coming up very shortly will be Bounds Green Depot, which you can now see on the right. This is where East Coast trains, Class 91s and HSTs are maintained. Also diverging to the right here is the Hertford Loop line, which will rejoin us again just before Stevenage. At the other end of this tunnel here, I'm not sure of the name, I'll try and look it up to put it in the captions. The speed limit will be going up to 100 miles per hour. We've just passed the 100 mile per hour speed board, so I'm now increasing power so we can accelerate up towards that. We're now passing through New Southgate station. I am reducing the power again to ensure that we don't break the 100 mile per hour speed limit. We've now entered another tunnel. At the other end of this tunnel, the speed limit will be going up to 115 miles per hour, and we'll stay at that until we're the other side of Welwyn Viaduct and the double track section known as the bottleneck. We can now accelerate to 115 just after we pass the signal which we just passed. The station that we're now coming up to is Oakleigh Park. We're now passing New Barnet station. I have now reduced the power a bit as we've reached 115 miles per hour. I want to try and ensure that we don't break that speed limit. I feel we're slowing down just slightly too much there, so I've just increased the power just slightly to try and ensure that we don't lose too much speed. We're now entering Hadley South Tunnel. Straight after the tunnel is Hadley Station, and then we go straight into another tunnel at Hadley North. We're now into Hadley North Tunnel. After this we've got a quite long, sharp left-hand curve, and then we enter the longest tunnel that we're going to go through on this journey, which is Potters Bar Tunnel. We're now approaching Potters Bar Station. In the year 2002, this was the site of a train crash when a 4-car Class 365 electric multiple unit derailed on the point just before the station, which was faulty. The front half of the train stayed on, but unfortunately the rear coach fully derailed and mounted the platform. We're now passing Brookmans Park station. We're now passing Welham Green station. We're now passing Hatfield station. We're now passing through Welwyn Garden City Station. Shortly after this, the 4 tracks will temporarily go down to 2 tracks as the slow lines join the fast lines for around a 2 to 3 mile section of double track. This is quite often called the bottleneck, as it can cause congestion on the East Coast Main Line at this point. As you can probably see, that the sky is just very slightly getting lighter now, and you're starting to be able to make out more of the trackside scenery. The 4 tracks have now gone down to 2 tracks, and so we're now crossing Welwyn Viaduct. Straight after Welwyn Viaduct we go through Welwyn North Station. Straight after Welwyn North Station we then go through 2 tunnels. We're now entering the first of the 2 tunnels north of Welwyn North. We're now entering the second tunnel. Just after this tunnel, the speed limit will be going up to 125 miles per hour, which will be the ruling speed limit for most of the rest of the journey. We have now passed the 125 mile per hour speed board, and we can accelerate just as you see those two white lights that just appeared, which are repeaters. As soon as you see those white lights appear, you can be sure that the rear of the train has passed the 125 speed board. In a moment we will be going back to 4 tracks, and we will be 4 track until the other side of Huntingdon, which is the last station before Peterborough. The next station that we pass through is the last one before Stevenage, which is Knebworth. At Knebworth station I'm going to idle the power and allow the train to coast, as we will be needing to brake for Stevenage shortly after that. Now we're approaching 125 miles per hour. I am just reducing the power to ensure that we don't break the speed limit. This is Knebworth station, so I've now idled the power to allow the train to coast. At the signal after this one, that is a landmark towards our braking point, so as we pass the next signal we'll then see an illuminated building on the left. As we pass that illuminated building, I'm going to make a step 4 brake application, going up to step 5 if required to slow us down for Stevenage. You can see the next signal coming up now. So I am now applying the brakes up to step 4. Step 4 is just over the number 3 on the gauge in the top left of the cab, which is illuminated. That's the brake cylinder pressure gauge. And so if the 2 needles are pointing just above the number 3, you know we're in a step 4 brake application. I'll try not to use above step 5 when braking in the Class 91. Step 5, the next braking position, is when the 2 needles are pointing at the 4 on the brake gauge. You can now see the lights of the platform at Stevenage coming up. I am going into a step 5 brake application now to try and ensure that our speed is coming off quick enough. We want to aim to enter the platform at no faster than 35 miles per hour. And 30 to 35 is about the right speed to enter a platform in this train. Due to the length of the train, we do need to stop right at the other end of the platform. I am now going down 1 step of braking to step 4 once again. As you can see, we're going to be entering the platform at around 30 miles per hour. As we progress through the platform, I'm now reducing the braking temporarily just to make sure that we don't slow down too quickly. We should now be stopped in about the right place, so just to remember to put the reversing handle in neutral just as we stop. Departing from Stevenage, the starting speed limit is 125 miles per hour, and we've got just over 48 3/4 miles to go to our next and final stop, which is Peterborough. Apologies for the momentary lag there. Again, I'm not sure what caused that. I believe it's partly to do with the recording program I'm using, partly to do with my hard drive, and partly to do with my computer in general. Thankfully it has managed to free itself up. So I now need to fiddle around with the speed set to try and get it to 130. In fact, I've managed it this time. And this will ensure that we don't break the 125 speed limit. In fact, it will maintain our speed at 122 miles per hour. Between Stevenage and Peterborough there are very few changes in the speed limit. In fact, for the most part now it's just a case of driving along and ensuring that these signals are all clear. As you can see, it is starting to get considerably lighter now, and you're starting to be able to see much more of the trackside scenery, and this will only improve as we get closer to Peterborough. As I've mentioned a few times in previous videos, I am soon looking to do a question and answer video as a UK freight video on a freight journey in a Class 92 along the West Coast Main Line. I do need people to start submitting questions to me now for me to answer in that video. So if you do head over to my Facebook page, which the link to that will be in the description of this video, and then just write your questions on the wall there, I can collect all of the questions together to answer them when recording the video. We're now passing through Hitchen station. The line off to Cambridge diverges to the right just here. I believe this is modelled how it used to be, so that the trains to Cambridge had to cross the main line to go off to the right, but I believe that today they have now built a flyover here, so that trains from the down slow, which is to our left, don't have to cross the main line anymore, which could potentially cause delays and congestion. Along this section now you will see quite a few level crossings and quite a few whistle boards for those level crossings. However, do note that I won't be sounding the horn at these whistle boards due to the time of day that it is. I believe there are restrictions in place in the UK on when you can sound the horn, and at this time of day it's too early to do so. We're now passing through Arlesey Station. We're now passing through Biggleswade Station. We're now passing through Sandy Station. We're now passing St Neots station. I am going to idle the power in a moment, as the speed limit will shortly be dropping to 120 miles per hour. We only need to lose about 2 miles per hour in speed. So at this signal here, I'm just going to idle the power, as I'm not certain exactly how far away we are from the 120 speed board. The speed limit is only 120 miles per hour for a mile or two before going back up to 125. As we were already doing 122, just idling the power allowed us to slow down enough. We have now passed the 120 mile per hour speed board, so I'm just staying in a medium power setting to try and maintain us at around this speed. The river to the left of us now that you can see is the Great Ouse. The speed limit has now gone back up to 125 miles per hour, so I'm now going to reapply full power, again with the speed set maintaining us around 122 to 123 miles per hour. We are now passing through Huntingdon station, which is the last station before Peterborough. At this point we have around 17 3/4 miles to go to Peterborough station. From this point we're now down to 3 tracks until just the other side of Connington loops. So we've got 2 down lines. We're on the down first. To the left of us is the down slow. And then on the right we just have the up line, which is both for fast and slower trains. Of course, with no stations between Peterborough and Huntingdon, all trains on the up first are non-stop and so moving at a fairly quick speed. We're now passing Connington sidings on the right. After we've passed all of these sidings, once we cross the next level crossing, we will then be about a mile from the next speed change, which is a drop in speed limit to 105 miles per hour. At this crossing here, we're now a mile from the 105 limit, so I've just idled the power to allow the train to coast. I'm going to make a step 3 brake application at the next signal just coming up. As you can see, we've just passed a Morpeth board for the 105 speed limit. I have now made a step 3 brake application, which should bring our speed off about right. Now doing 105 miles per hour as we entered the 105 speed zone. I am allowing the train to continue to coast, as we've only got about a mile to go to the next speed limit, which is a reduction to 100 miles per hour. So there's no point in accelerating above 100 now. So I'm just allowing the train to coast down to that and applying a small amount of power to try and ensure that we don't break that speed limit. We have just passed the Morpeth board for the 100 mile per hour speed limit coming up. The speed limit has now gone down to 100 miles per hour. The next speed change will be an increase back up to 115 miles per hour. The speed limit is now going up to 115. We can accelerate for that now. As you probably noticed, there was a small yellow milepost just to our left, which was the indicator that the rear of the train has passed the speed board. We've now got around 4 miles to go to Peterborough. The next landmark that we're looking out for is a footbridge across the tracks, which it looks like it may be coming up now, if it is the next bridge, as I think it is. Yep, we've just passed under the footbridge now, which means we're 1 mile from the next speed change, which is a reduction to 105 miles per hour. We do now have the Morpeth board for the 105 speed limit, and I'm just going to make a very light brake application at step 1, just as we enter this right hand curve here. This should bring our speed down about right. I have now released the brakes at 105 miles per hour, and as you can see, we're coasting along at that speed nicely now. We do now have a double yellow signal indicating that we are in fact approaching Peterborough. Not quite sure why, but I didn't hear the AWS go off there. At this overbridge just here, I'm now going to start applying the brakes for our entry into Peterborough. Initially a step 4 brake application, going up to step 5 if required. I have now increased to step 5 as I just wanted to make sure that our speed is coming off quick enough. We do have a 30 mph speed limit coming up. We're now crossing the River Nene just before entering Peterborough. We now have a single yellow signal. The speed limit will be going down to 30 as we cross some points to the left in a moment, so I am now reducing the brake force which we're using. You can see the left hand point coming up just ahead, so I've now released the brakes at 30 mph. I'm just going to allow the train to coast into Peterborough station. Here at Peterborough we do need to stop right at the end of the platform to be able to fit the whole train in. So I'm just going to gradually bring our speed off now using a light brake application so that we stop in the right place. Here we are, arrival at Peterborough. Thank you very much for watching. I really hope that you've enjoyed the video, and please don't forget that you can find me on Facebook, the link which will be in the description of this video, and also if you really do appreciate the work that I do, you can support me financially on Patreon. Again, the link will be in the description of this video.